You know, I was raised in the country in North Carolina, and my daddy would ask this question, ain't he a good one? You all understand that, don't you? Let me introduce a good friend of mine next. Her name is Lenna Neill. She is CEO of the Piedmont Women's Center, and she's been in this fight a long time and is no better ally in South Carolina to the cause of life than Lenna Neill. Please welcome her today to the platform.
Good afternoon. I bring you greetings from Andy. Andy was born this week at 3 o'clock in the morning, and she weighs 7 pounds, 11 ounces, and she's 21 inches long. And how do I know that? Because Andy's mother called to tell us. Andy's life was in jeopardy. Andy's mother found Piedmont Women's Center by surfing the internet, and she saw where free, and excellence were listed. And she chose to come to a Christian organization, not caring a thing about Christ, not caring anything about this unborn child she was carrying. She just wanted to know, was I pregnant? How far along was I? Was this a viable pregnancy? Because I needed to know why I planned an abortion. I come to you not as a CEO of Piedmont Women's Center, but I come to you as someone who has spent the last 20 years speaking on behalf of the unborn, speaking and standing in the gap and field for the least among us, for those who have no voice. And Andy had no voice. And when her mother came in and she was met with the compassionate care of the body of Christ, and she received that free pregnancy test that, yes, confirmed there was a pregnancy, then she received a free limited OB ultrasound. And when she saw this unborn babe, she was horrified to think that she had made plans to end the life of that baby in haste without factual information. She was continued to be loved on. She was met with compassion. She was met with grace, no condemnation. And she said, how will I do this? How will I take care of this unborn baby? What about the father of the baby? He's still in college. We don't have a plan. What do we do? Well, we invited him into our circle. We introduced him to that unborn baby. And we showed him what God was doing, what he was creating in the womb. And we said there is a way, that we live in a compassionate nation. We live in a compassionate community that will help you take care of your unborn child. You do not have to sacrifice this child on the altar of inconvenience. Through counsel, through love, through biblical reasoning, she chose life for Andy. And how do I know? She called us from the hospital to say, Andy's here. We could not do it without each one of you. Our services are free. We are the compassionate arm of the pro-life movement in this community that offers these services. But we're not the only ones who are taking care of the unborn and the least among us and those who have no voice. We have seen hundreds of babies saved because the body of Christ has come together and said, not in my community, not in my state, and it will not be in my nation. We are going to end Roe v. Wade. We are going to keep speaking. We're not going to shut up. We're not going to go away. With my last breath, I will continue to talk about the biblical model of the sanctity of human life. Why we protect life, why we care about life, because God the Father is the creator. HHS can come along, presidents come and go, some do good things, and the next one comes along and he undoes the next thing, and we put people in the White House and the State House and these community houses, but what happens in your house and what happens in the house of God, that's what's going to change America. That's why the unborn are being saved. In James 1:27, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. But what is a baby to be aborted but an orphan? What is that woman but a widow? We cannot look to the White House to take care of these widows and orphans. We cannot look to HHS to make decisions about the future of unborn children and women and their reproductive health. We need to look to ourselves. We need to look to our own families and the compassionate care that the local churches have. When we stop taking care of women in distress, we let the government step in and say, I will do it. And now we're in a mess. I say let's take it back to the churches, let's take it back to our communities, and let's step it up. Folks, when Roe v. Wade is overcome, and when HHS gets out of all of our business, are you ready? Are you willing to help take care of those who find themselves in distress, who find themselves with unplanned pregnancies? Is the body of Christ ready to say, okay, when they say, okay, it's back to you. We're out of this. We have nothing to do with it. You regulate yourselves. You take care of it. Can we do it? Yes. I believe we can. You've kept the ministry of Piedmont Women's Center open 21 years. We've seen thousands of babies saved. We've seen thousands of people who have had abortions receive healing. They don't have to deal with grief and anger and disappointment and wonderment what happened to their baby. We introduce them to the one who has the answer. We introduce them to Jesus Christ, who restores and heals and brings them back to life. That's what the body of Christ is doing here. And it's happening all over our nation. Pregnancy centers are all over the nation. Choose one. Take care of it. Don't just hold a sign. Don't just say what we don't like. Let's say what we do like. Take care of Bethany Christian Services. Take care of Miracle Hill Ministries. There are compassionate ministries all over. Stand in the gap with them. We've got to be ready because I believe Roe v. Wade will be overturned in my lifetime. What are we going to do to take care of those who have no voice? It will be our responsibility. That's my challenge to you, is to stand in the gap with us. Make sure that what happens in the White House, what happens with HHS, what happens with all that, continues to have a voice. We continue to speak for that, but let's be ready. When God says, I have heard my people, they have repented, they have turned away from their wicked ways, it's time for them to step up. Join me. God bless you. Thank you for letting me join you today.